Did you target my records and subpoena my phone toll records?
My understanding is your records were subpoenaed by prosecutors before I became special counsel.
I learned for the first time a few weeks ago that my phone records were indeed targeted. This happened 4 years ago in May of 2022, and I couldn't object because I didn't know. I didn't know until about 3 weeks ago. 400 plus Republican conservative groups and leaders who were targeted by your investigation. Their financial records were obtained, records of the RNC, the Trump campaign, Cleta Mitchell, the Conservative Partnership Institute, the America First Policy Institute, NRCC, NRSC, PACs, conservative groups, people all across the country, citizens. Frankly, are there any limits to the power of a special prosecutor or special counsel? Thank the chairman. Mr. Smith, how many members of Congress or the Senate did you subpoena phone toll records?
As I sit here right now, I do not recall a specific number.
Is this the complete list right here? Well, let me ask you this. Am I on this list? Did you target my records and subpoena my phone toll records?
My understanding is your records were subpoenaed by prosecutors before I became special counsel.
Well, staff would put this up on the screen. I'm thankful for the great staff who discovered the email where I learned for the first time a few weeks ago that my phone records were indeed targeted. We called AT&T and we've learned that they were given to the Department of Justice, as this email indicates, because I had been in communication with Scott Perry, one of my colleagues here in Congress, who literally had his phone taken from him in front of his family. And of course, as we've already talked about in this document, it talks about you could be in violation of the privilege by even obtaining and possessing this information if the member objected to the disclosure. This happened 4 years ago in May of 2022, and I couldn't object because I didn't know. I didn't know until about 3 weeks ago. My question here is, was there any limits to your investigation or the investigation that preceded you, Mr. Smith? Because as egregious as a violation of separation of powers this is, as an egregious and abuse of power it is, it's far more concerning you are clearly targeting American citizens for merely being conservative or supporting the president. We've got memos that we've already been talking about in this hearing from April 2022 that preceded you that establish and open the investigations, one of which has Attorney General Merrick Garland's signature on it. And the focus was the electors. Now that was 6 months before you were appointed. You testified earlier, you met and interviewed Merrick Garland and Deputy AG Lisa Monaco. And you briefed the AG and deputy multiple times. Did you brief them on the electors and the prosecution of their supposed crimes?
Did I? I'm sorry.
Did you brief them on the electors and their supposed crimes?
I don't recall specific conversations, but I'm sure that in the course of briefing them, I discussed.
Wasn't that the purpose of the entire investigation as it was set out? Because putting aside that in 1960, as we already talked about, my friend Mr. Tiffany, that Hawaii put forward an alternate slate of electors, the investigation pivoted to President Trump and, frankly, anybody who knew him. Do you know who Cleta Mitchell is?
Yes, I do.
She's an election lawyer that was involved in filing an election contest on behalf of President Trump in Georgia in December of 2020. A 64-page complaint with over 1,100 pages of exhibits, witness affidavits, and expert witness reports documenting thousands of votes cast in violation of Georgia law, but which were nevertheless included in the vote totals. Now, notwithstanding the disposition of the cases that was filed, is that a criminal act? Filing an election contest on behalf of a candidate for office, a client. Is that a criminal act, yes or no?
No, in fact, we stated.
So why did you deem it appropriate to monitor Cleta Mitchell's long-distance phone records in 2023, 2.5 years after the election contest was filed and after the presidential electors were certified? What about Jen Ellis? What about Sidney Powell? What about Bill Sepien? What crime did you suspect had been committed by them that would warrant monitoring their phone records 2.5 years after the 2020 election was certified?
With respect to Sidney Powell, she is one of the co-conspirators alleged in the indictment. I don't know what you mean by monitoring, sir, if you're talking.
Well, there were some 400 plus Republican conservative groups and leaders who were targeted by your investigation. Their financial records were obtained, records of the RNC, the Trump campaign, Cleta Mitchell, the Conservative Partnership Institute, the America First Policy Institute, NRCC, NRSC, PACs, conservative groups, people all across the country, citizens, because we hear a lot about members of Congress. And we should, because of separation of powers and the egregious abuse of power. But what we're not talking about enough, in my opinion, are the American citizens that have been targeted. Because frankly, are there any limits to the power of a special prosecutor or special counsel? So much so in your abuse of power that in the summer of 2024, the indictment involving classified documents was dismissed after determining your appointment violated the Appointments Clause of the Constitution, but you continued to sign your name on court filings until the time you resigned from office in January of 2025. A federal judge just recently stated a prosecutor who continues to sign his name in court filings after a disqualification order should face disciplinary action or disbarment.
With respect to the last point, Judge Cannon's order specifically limited her finding to that proceeding. So there would be nothing improper about continuing to litigate the cases in Washington, D.C. And with respect to Florida, there was nothing improper about taking an appeal of that very decision.
Thank you, Chairman. You know, I don't even know where to go because there's so much, Mr. Smith. There really is. But it isn't, what I do know is it's much more than how much people like or hate you, or like or hate Donald Trump, or like or hate Republicans, or like or hate Democrats. This is about the system. It's about what the Department of Justice did. It's about what you did. The core of the hearing is all about, can Americans still trust the justice system? Is it fair? Was it fair under you? And all they don't expect you to be perfect, but they expect you to treat everyone the same, Republicans and Democrats, liberals and conservatives, but that wasn't the case. When you treat people differently because of their political status, their political party, their ideals, that's hypocrisy. And I'm sorry to say, and I don't say it lightly, I do consider you to be a hypocrite. With that being said, you know, I think the prosecutors and the people around you stretch norms, change standards depending upon who was under investigation. So you don't like Donald Trump, and so you're a liberal Democrat, whatever the case may be. And they went after him. And by the way, it's interesting, in all those congressional records that were subpoenaed, all those congressional records that were looked at, was one of them a Democrat? No. The answer is no. I'll answer for you. So I got simple questions. I always say I'm a simple guy, but it really boils down to this. How much can Americans trust this system? In your special counsel report, you stated President Trump engaged and was guilty of criminal conspiracies, and he was guilty of criminal conduct, and you publicly testified you believed you had the proof, etc. If prosecutors deal this way with cases, if they declare that it's guilty and it's over before a jury verdict, would Americans trust the justice system more, or would they? Would they trust the system more? The answer, go ahead, answer, please answer.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you were asking me.
So when this was all going on, before, and I believe it was political, before there was an entire case and we went through the whole case, you pretty much declared, and I'm not going to read the whole thing through again, that President Trump was guilty. That wasn't your job. That's a judge's job. It's a jury's job. It's not your job. Don't you think that's unfair, that that's wrong, that didn't make the playing field level? Did it make people less trustworthy of the system, yes or no?
No. When I announced the charges in the election case, I specifically stated that the case needed to be tried and that he had a right to go to trial and he was presumed innocent.
And thank you for, I just want a simple answer because we are limited on time. I disagree with you. I don't think you did. Your office secretly subpoenaed and got records of members of Congress, and you kept those subpoenas hidden through non-disclosure orders. That's wrong. They should have known. You want to do that, fine, it's wrong. Number one, it's wrong because people have a right, the American public has a right to know, the elected officials have a right to know. It's your right to subpoena them, but they should know. Secondly, and I brought this up before, not one Democrat, it's all Republicans, all Republicans. Everything you've ever done is always against Republicans. Do you think that puts more trust in the system when you're so partisan in that way? Yes or no?
No. Politics played no role in our investigation. I have prosecuted Republicans and Democrats throughout my career. I have dismissed cases against Republicans and Democrats.
Because you didn't have the proof. If prosecutors routinely rely on politically imbalanced investigations, and by this I mean, let me appeal to your sense of fairness. You're saying you're a fair man. We had a January 6th committee, select committee, that was appointed only by a Democrat, the then Speaker, Nancy Pelosi. Everybody on it was a Democrat, except 2 Republicans that hated Republicans. Was that fair? Was that fair? I mean, look at our system here in Congress. We've got Democrats, man, they speak up. You've got Republicans, we speak up. You hear both sides. That's the way a select committee should be. And you based everything upon this biased, unfair, prejudiced system. How is that fair? Tell me how that's fair.
That's not correct. We conducted an independent investigation.
You based a lot on that commission. You got all their records.
That's not correct. We did collect their records. We conducted our own independent investigation following the facts and the law. The
And you used
reality
a lot of their information, Mr. Smith. I don't mean to cut you off. I've got limited time. Joe Biden took classified records that were not to be taken when he was vice president and when he was Senate. And I know you didn't deal directly with that case.
Mr. Chairman?
But nevertheless, he did. Is that fair? Because he let him go, don't do anything to him. But on the other hand, when it's President Trump who did it as president, then there was, you raided Mar-a-Lago. Is that fair?
I'm the gentleman.
Mr.
I'm the
Chairman.
gentleman's part of this.
Well, I'd like him to answer.
If the witness would like to respond, he can.
I have no response.
It's damn unfair. That's the answer.
We've got UC request.